the gang, we all we got. Education of self, generational wealth, stimulus check on the first, it'll be gone by the 12th. The middle class is wiped out, America shut down, no NBA buckets, ain't no throwing no touchdowns. People living in fear, alone with their own thoughts, and that's a dangerous thing, cause niggas got no heart. The great white shark bite got blood in the water, late night gunfights detained at the border.
Many Americans' thoughts on poverty is a mindset attributing to a negative characteristic created about poor people, that they're lazy, incompetent, or lack of education. At least since medieval times, people have blamed the poor, and especially the so-called undeserving poor, for their plight. American today is no different in this respect. In this losing race labor market discrimination report.
Daddy's just upset, baby, because he's lazy and the white man makes him work hard.
The topics we'll be discussing are as follows: my research question, thesis, and counterclaims. The 4 sources to support my thesis, which are: my first source, How Black Are Lakisha and Jamal, done in 2017, which is considered a primary source. My second source, Discrimination in the Credential Society, done in 2015, a primary source. My third source, Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakisha and Jamal, done in 2004. Also a primary source. My fourth source, an updated analysis of race and gender effects on employer interest in job applicants, done in 2016. And this is also a primary source. Lastly, I will then summarize all of my findings to answer my research question: is there a relationship between job market discrimination and race in America? A factor like social class, also known as SES, is tied closely to race, but let us look at another factor that determines our SES, which is the job market, a smaller part of the bigger discrimination that comes with it. Historical problems that prevented non-whites and females to get ahead, people being turned away from better paying jobs because they were not a white male, or denied VA benefits to buy a home to create generational wealth for future generations in 1944. My thesis is there is, but more so today in higher level positions. Counter arguments would be, there's not a problem in the job market about race because there are lots of people of ethnic background at my job. Even tokenistic fallacies like my boss or my friend's boss is of ethnic descent, or we had one black president out of a total 46, which is a tokenistic fallacy, assuming that one person of a race made it, so everyone in that race must have made it. But enough of all this rhetoric. Let's jump right in, shall we?
I'm about to show Master P I'm about it. Make him say, oh!
Before we look at my sources, let me put out a quick disclaimer about the differences between a primary and secondary scientific study. Primary sources are studies that have a methodology, meaning that there was a method for the data collection. Secondary sources use someone else's study to collect the data. So for those of you caught up with my videos, my 5th video, Desert Ecology Project, would be considered kind of like a primary scientific study, as I collected the data at different parts, and this would be more of a secondary source as I'm using others' data to consider my own thesis. How Black Are Lakisha and Jamal helps us to understand why names like Lakisha and Jamal are chosen for studies about racial names. The study was conducted in 2017 by Gaddis SM. The methodology for this involved a survey experiment using Amazon's Mechanical Turk, which is, well, let's just let someone else explain this better than I can.
Mechanical Turk workers excel at doing all of the tasks that people are good at, such as categorizing businesses, images, and data, transcribing images, audio, and video, comparing items and data records, evaluating items for quality or cleaning up issues, collecting data from various places on the internet, and a wide range of other tasks.
What Gaddis would do was conduct a survey experiment that asked respondents to identify the race they associate with and pairing it with a series of names. For African American names, he would alter the first name given to each respondent and include more commonly first names given by highly educated black mothers, like Jaylin and Nia, which are less likely to be perceived as black names. Similar to how Latino and Latina names are normally pronounced wrong, by most English speakers.
Hey, busboy, por favor. Busboy, my name is David. Excuse me? I said my name is David. It's actually pronounced David, okay? Well, I'm David. It's David, dude, look it up.
Then assign names given by less educated black mothers like Deshawn or Tanisha, which are perceived as more black sounding names. He then would pair a more commonly black last name and a white sounding last name with that first name. This would then suggest that evidence on racial discrimination operates under a misguided assumption that all black names are alike and sound uneducated or hard to pronounce.
I sent a lot of friend requests to black people, and I even learned how to pronounce their names, even if it was difficult. Beautiful.
The perception rates of the names being associated to a particular race were lower when first names are given no racially mismatched last names. For example, a name like Jalen Washington was perceived to be a black name, but when mismatched with a name like Jalen Hollick, would have a higher chance to be perceived as a white name. This study helps us to understand why the phenomenon occurs that all black names sound alike when in fact they don't. Lakisha and Jamal have a higher chance to be received as black names like Jalen and Nia. Gaddis concludes the results suggest that a larger body of social science evidence on racial discrimination operates under a misguided assumption that all black names are alike. And the findings from corresponding audits are lightly sensitive to name selection. Now that we have an idea behind why the names are chosen for my other source, let's move right along into our next source. Discrimination in the Credential Society was conducted by Gaddis SM as well, but in 2015. The purpose of the study was to look into racial inequalities and economic outcomes, mainly on the college educated that persists throughout the US society. Scholars' argument, is this a human factor issue or one of race? This source helps my research question because jobs that are a result of college education come with prestige and authority. Subject matter experts in these positions can sometimes even get to testify in a court case trial for your expert opinion. If there is any discrimination, it would be in the top positions, not as much on the worker end. These higher type of positions are the ones that can influence company policies and that can be for the people or against the people. In this study, Gaddis would examine employment opportunities for black and white graduates from elite, top-ranked university. Gaddis would use audit designs looking into 1,008 jobs on a national job search website. He also would use existing birth record data and selection of names to control for differences in social class with racialized names. The result of this study shows that a credential from an elite university results in more employer responses for all candidates. However, black candidates from elite universities only do about the same as white applicants from less selective universities. This supports my thesis as there is a relationship between job market discrimination and race in America in this situation. So now that we can see that this gives us an answer, there is discrimination at higher positions. Next, let us look at my next source. If it is this way in every job position. Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakisha and Jamal? This study was conducted in 2004 by Bertrand M. and Mullainathan S. to explore inequalities in the job market on the grounds of race. This was conducted by responding to 1,300 employment ads in sales, administrative, support, clinical, and customer service jobs, and sending nearly 5,000 resumes in Boston and Chicago. The results from this study showed callbacks are more responsive to resume quality for white names than for African American ones. The results were the same based on occupation, industry, and employer size. It was stated that it is unknown if employers are assuming social class. My first source shows that the first names from educated mothers with traditional white last names did make a difference in assumption of race and possibly social class. This study didn't use white last names, but this does show an issue in lower positions as well. I wonder how this would be if the tables were turned.
Job will be even harder.
You don't expect to make the same amount of money that minorities make, do you?
Well, I do just as much work.
You're trash around here. You'll never make as much as a minority.
However, this study was done in 2004. So let us look at a more up-to-date study that was done in 2016. An updated analysis of race and gender effects on employer interest in job applicants was conducted by Deloria R. and Codell C. as an updated study from Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakisha and Jamal? This study was conducted on a much larger scale. Instead of focusing in one area, it sent out almost 9,000 fictitious resumes to online job postings in 7 cities and 6 occupations, which range from administrative assisting, customer service, information technology, medical assisting, excluding nursing, medical office, billing, and sales. This study also focused on gender in addition to race, also adding Hispanics as well. All resumes indicated that applicants had attained his or her high school diploma, and approximately 85% of resumes indicated at least some college coursework at a 2-year institution. Result of the study showed that on average, all applicants received an 11.4% chance of callback, but were a little higher among white applicants, with black men receiving the least chance of callback and white women having the highest chance of callback. The research design did not allow the study to examine discrimination in other stages of the hiring process, such as interviews or offers, and continued research is needed. To summarize the study, it favored white applicants, but the differences are substantially small. This study shows that by 2016, that discrimination has decreased from what it was in the 2004 study. Now, if we could only get women to get paid equally, that would be great.
On Earth, men and women are equals.
Equals? We make 70% of your salary for the same job.
Seize them! Was this really the time to make that point, Summer?
Now, let's compare my findings from all 4 sources to summarize the answer to my research question. Is there a relationship between job market discrimination and race in America? This is a question that we will need to look at my sources in a little bit of a different order to understand. My second source, Discrimination in the Credential Society, shows that there is discrimination when it comes to more prestige positions. My third source, Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakisha and Jamal, may be outdated, but stated that there is, or should I say, was a disparity in 2004. My first source, How Black Are Lakisha and Jamal, helps us understand the thought process when it comes to the perception of race association. By 2016, our fourth source, an updated analysis of race and gender effects and employer interest in job applicants, shows that non-prejudiced callbacks have improved from 2004 to 2016. However, white females have the highest chances of a callback and black males have the lowest chances. But our second study shows us that there is a disparity in more prestige positions, but the disparity still exists in positions that come with prestige, money, and authority. So no, there isn't a disparity among the cashiers at fast food restaurants or billing specialists at a hospital, but there is one among people in charge, and that is anything but equal, because people from a top-tier college should not get chosen over someone from a less prestige college because of race. And no, I'm not talking about affirmative action.
Honey, a few new books doesn't qualify as affirmative black action.
Hey, read the book, ace the guy's test. Just don't swallow everything he feeds you whole. You know, just because you see it on the evening news. No, but like what? All this stuff about making everything equal. It's not that simple. Look, now you got this book, Native Son. You know, what happened to the other books in the course? They're not any good anymore because Mr. 2 PhD says they aren't? Huh? I mean, you gotta trade in great books for black books? Yeah, maybe. No. It's nigger bullshit. You see that, don't you? Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for enjoying another educational video. So, hey, please cue my music up.